welcome into another Lunch Hour Live here at the Boston Public Library at the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Sue O'Connell and I know I say it every time, but we have nothing but treats for you every single time at Lunch Hour Live. I don't know if you've ever just walked around Boston and said, boy, things are a lot different than they used to be. I think, but I'm not sure. We've got some folks that are going to join us right now to talk about this great treasure trove of video that WGBH has. If you follow the account WGBH Archive on Twitter, which I do, and every now and then in my busy day, suddenly I come upon this wonderfully relaxing scene of like North Station or Kenmore Square back from the 70s or 80s or even 90s. It is just so remarkable to see, and we're going to talk right now. I'm joined by James Auclair, who's the Senior Researcher of Media, Library, and Archives. Welcome, James. And Karen Cariani, who's the Executive Director of Media, Library, and Archives. You both have much longer titles, which I'll probably dive into in just a little bit. But just for sort of setting the table for us, Karen, what are the WGBH Archives?
Well, WGBH has been on the air for radio since 1951 and television since 1955. So we've produced a lot of material over those many years, and we've kept as much of it as we possibly can in our archive vault and in our offsite storage. And we currently have over 750,000 items in the collection, and it's material from Julia Child's first show on film to videotape of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, to radio shows on quarter-inch audio tape, to Frontlines that aired last week.
And how is it stored? Because I know that over the years I've seen a number of radio and television stations go out of business, and I know personally a couple of people who showed up as they were about to demolish the building and grabbed a bunch of tapes so that they could save them and archive them in their own way. James, what do you have? Do you have like lots of tapes, lots of videotapes, or are they all digitized at this point?
It's somewhere in a process. We have a bunch of, lots of 3/4-inch tapes. We have 1-inch tapes. We have beta, digibeta, D3. It's a whole wide arrangement. But I mean, you know more about the digitizing process than I do. I mean, you can tell them about the.
We have an NEH Challenge grant, actually, that's underway at the moment to digitize a third of the collection. That's 83,000 items on obsolete formats. So the older videotape material that we have is starting to disintegrate and deteriorate. So we need to migrate it to a new medium, and these days the preservation medium is a digital file. So we are in the process of digitizing the most at-risk things first, and soon we'll be doing the more recent things.
And this WGBH archive is also part of a greater archive, right?
Yes, we're also stewards of the American Archive of Public Broadcasting with the Library of Congress, where we're collecting material from stations across the country. We have the Sesame Street collection as part of it. We have the NewsHour collection as part of it. So we're slowly trying to get as much material as we can before it disintegrates.
And James, obviously, this is a public treasure, and we're all lucky to have it, but there's also commerce involved in it. There are some companies, some entertainment companies, production companies, who from time to time need to have a clip either for a documentary or for even a drama film. Can you give me an example of something that's in the WGBH archive that was used in a different way, in a broader way, in a licensing form?
Sometimes feature film producers come to us, and I mean, this is an older feature film, but Pirates of the Caribbean licensed some shark footage from us once upon a time.
That's great.
Yeah, but that's what we do. When somebody, usually it's like another documentary producer comes to us and wants to license something that WGBH shot, like for Nova or Frontline. I facilitate that. I handle the licensing process, negotiate rates, and issue license agreements. So that's what I do.
And all that money goes right back into the archive, right?
Correct.
All right, so let's stop talking about it and let's take a look at it. We're going to show a clip about North Station, and James and Karen are going to help walk us through what we're seeing on the screen. So this is North Station. When was this clip made?
Sometime 1980s. But if you look at this, Boston Garden is sort of like the essence of what I'm trying to do on Twitter, because you have a lot going on here. It's the Boston Garden, it's the Bruins, it's the Celtics, it's the the Barnum and Bailey Circus, it's
Concerts.
rock
Yep,
concerts,
yep.
it's WrestleMania, any event that happened here, people have a lot of memories about it. It was, built in the 1920s and it's gone now. And so people have a lot of emotion attached to the garden and it's gone. And also you have in front, as you see, you have the elevated train. And so people have that memory of taking the train and walking through the passageway to get to North Station. So people make a lot of comments about, their memories of this place. And it looks so different. If you walk by now, you would never know you were in the same city. It's all new. And anybody who doesn't remember wouldn't know where they are.
Right, right. No, I showed some of the clips that we're going to look at this morning to my 19-year-old daughter. We live in the city. We're always around the city. We've been to Boston, New Boston Garden, a million times, and she was just flabbergasted that she couldn't figure out where that was. Karen, what were these shot for? Why would a TV station or WGBH have just shots of the city like this?
Well, we used to do news, local news in Boston. So way back in the 80s, we had a 10 o'clock news show, and we had cameramen out there shooting scenes of Boston for news stories. And we've kept all that material.
It's amazing, and archived it and cataloged it too, which is
Correct.
also part of the challenge. Just want to let folks know that if you have any questions or comments for us about the WGBH archive, you can put them on your comments in Twitter and Facebook. If you're here at the Boston Public Library at the Newsfeed Cafe, just raise your hand. We'll come over and get a question. James, you look at all of this stuff and you put it together on the Twitter feed, and I was so thrilled when discovering I was going to do this because literally, honest to God, when one of the clips comes up on my Twitter feed, I watch it.
Nice.
Right? Is that the reaction that you've been getting?
I don't know what it is. When I first started doing this, I didn't know, I wasn't on social media or anything. I thought social media was a waste of time. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then a coworker was showing me her Twitter feed, and I started to look at it. I said, oh, that's what it looks like? And I could envision clips like, the way that it is. And so I started just doing random stuff, stuff that I thought was interesting, and it didn't really go anywhere. And so I did this for a while, and then I realized that when I looked at some of the clips from like the 1980s, how different it looked. And to me, I looked at the cars that people drove, the big land yachts as they call them, like all full of dents and the bumper held up by duct tape and stuff like that. And I thought people used to drive those things, and people's cars now look so nice. And to me, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was.
Right.
And so the breakthrough tweet that happened for me, it was down by Government Center where there's all that brutalist architecture, the concrete and these cars, and everyone's honking. And I wrote, is this Boston 1980s or somewhere behind the Iron Curtain? Because that's what it looked like to me. And all these people started saying stuff, commenting and retweeting, liking. I thought, oh, okay, I think if I look at something and it's a wow to me, it's going to be a wow to somebody else.
Let's take a look at another clip. This is the clip of Kenmore Square. And as I was talking to both of you before we started our broadcast today at Lunch Hour Live, I used to work in Kenmore Square at the old Boston Phoenix. I worked for the Boston Phoenix. And whenever I'm at the area with my daughter, I'm just flabbergasted by how much it's changed. Let's take a look at the Kenmore Square clip. There are some iconic spots right here. The Rathskeller, the Rat, which, some of the greatest music bands, punk bands have played at. What I love about these clips, just folks walking down, I'm looking for myself here. I'm waiting to see if I'm going to show up.
Yeah, what I like to show on these clips is everyday people doing everyday things. I like to show people commuting to work, eating at a restaurant, shopping,
That bike
walking.
is still there, though, I think. I
Yes.
think that bike is still there.
Were those tires really worth it?
I know, right?
So somebody from the Boston Phoenix commented that he ate at the Hoodoo Barbecue every day.
It's amazing. Karen, when you look at this, this looks so accurate. What year was this, do you think? This was probably
82 or something like that.
This looks exactly as I remember it. And I'm wondering, Karen, do you have an experience too when you're looking at the archival stuff, or does it look grittier? Does it look cleaner? Does it look nostalgic.
Nostalgic, and this format is 3/4 inch, so it's not the best and the most highest resolution, and the colors are probably a little washed out these days. So it might look a little dirtier, but we were talking earlier about how Boston back then was dirtier in general. And wow, I remember the Rathskeller, going to the Rathskeller, and it's gone now. I just drove through Kenmore Square recently, and it's not there anymore. You'd never even know there was a.
It's also, it's amazing to me when you're watching archival things like this. You know, and Dirty Old Boston is a spot on Facebook, but they've also published books, and they have share a lot of stuff that they've gotten that not necessarily have taken. But and I'm just always struck by how big the cars were, as you said, and just how dirty things looked.
Yes, it was a gritty city, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't realize it until you look at this video because we've forgotten because it looks so nice now.
Right. It's clean and all totally shiny. All right. So one thing that we need to spend a little time talking about is the sound. We played 2 clips that we didn't play the sound with them. And if folks want to go to your Twitter page or to the website, they can
hear full audio.
Hear the full audio of what's happening. We're going to play a clip right now that we kept the audio in for our purposes, and we're going to talk after the clip about why the audio is important. This is Tower Records.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I just want to say John Abbott retweeted that clip.
So that means something, because John Abbott is?
The president of
He's
WGBH.
the boss. So it meant something to him. I remember, so for folks who may not know, that building is up on the top of Newbury Street at Mass Ave. It opened, I think it was built to be to be Tower Records. It was really a big deal when it came in.
It was huge because it was multi-floors, and the thing that I remember was so exciting was that they sold singles.
They sold.
Because back many years ago, if you liked a song, you had to buy the album and pay all this money for one song.
So there's so many things in this clip that don't exist anymore. And I want to talk about why is the sound, when you're putting these clips together and you're putting them out for public consumption, and I know this sounds like a stupid question, but why is just the ambient sound, we call this stuff in the business B-roll, right? Because it doesn't really have a narrative purpose. We're just collecting visuals. But why is the sound important?
I want to give people a total immersion experience in what it was like to be in Boston in the 80s. Or 70s or whatever period of time, but you hear things in here that in that clip that you don't hear anymore, like the ringing, the phone ringing. You don't hear that kind of thing anymore. But I mean, it's important to hear the ambient noise so that when you're looking at that, and it's great that the camera person went all through the store so you can see all the different like genres of music that they had, and you hear the music, so you get a whole experience.
And the cash register.
The
You
cash
still hear
register,
the cash
yes.
register, and the
Yes.
change coming out, and
I
the
know.
plastic bags being rattled,
Yes.
and the ridiculous packaging on CDs as
Right.
they're moving it along.
Right, the long form CDs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Karen, I'm also struck by this, like, we could be doing this right now. Any one of us, right, could be, especially now when we've got all of our cameras and our phones and our watches, we could be just walking around doing archival B-roll footage, right? Is that something that, I know that we're totally Instagrammed out, we're Snapchat out, we've got TikTok videos like crazy, but are you hoping that there's somebody that's documenting things just as they are without a narrative?
Yes, that would be great if people kept personal archives and there was a place where those personal archives could be preserved for the long term, and that in the future it would be a snapshot of what life was today. For sure, yes.
We're taking questions from you on Facebook or Twitter. If you have one, just put it in the comments section, or you can raise your hand here at the Newsfeed Cafe at the Boston Public Library. I'm speaking with James Auclair, the Senior Researcher of Media and Archives, and Karen Cariani, Executive Director of Media and Archives at WGBH. Question from the audience: how can people find this material?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, as they say, and it's WGBH Archives. We're also on Facebook. It's WGBH Media Library and Archives is on Facebook, but I try to post the exact same videos, but it's not always, sometimes there's some discrepancies, but that's how they can see these.
We also have two websites. We have openvault.org, WGBHopenvault.org, that has a lot of the older materials from the GBH archive. The American Archive of Public Broadcasting.org is for material across the country. And Boston Local TV News is actually a collection that's a collaboration with the Boston Public Library and Northeast Historic Film in Maine, and that has a lot of local Boston news material from the old WCVB, WHDH, and WGBH.
That would be a fun rainy day weekend time to spend. All right, a question from the audience. How soon do videos disintegrate before you're digitizing? What's the lifespan and we've got these different formats now. We've got CDs. When the aliens show up, we're not going to be able to talk to them because what we send them? A record, right?
Yeah.
A vinyl record. What's the lifespan on stuff?
So the oldest tape format's about 2-inch tape, and those are about 60 years old. And they've held up pretty well for 60 years. They are now starting to deteriorate and disintegrate. And the interesting thing is that as formats progressed and became more modern, smaller, lighter, the manufacturing of the actual magnetic tape was worse. So we are finding that newer mini DV tapes the sound is starting to drop out 3 to 5 years after recording.
Yeah, it's funny. I went to digitize some of the stuff I shot on a camera like 18 years ago. I have my mother's reel-to-reel film that she did, and her stuff is holding up better than my most recent stuff. So there is a rush. There is a deadline on this stuff, and the fundraising is important to get it done as well.
Yes.
All right, question from the audience. Do you have a favorite archival video? Of all your children, James, do you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite, but there's some that I like a lot. The Bradley's clip that we're going to get to. Anything Boston Garden is great. Anything Kenmore Square is great. But yeah, I mean, there's some that sort of fall into place, like the planets are aligned, and what some people may not realize is that I take a tape, and the tape might be 20 minutes long, so I have to Twitterize it. I have to reduce it to like a maximum of 2 minutes, so I edit. So I just take a tape, digitize it, and I chop all the extraneous stuff out, and I just, the kernel of what's left is what I have. So in that editing process, some turn out better than others. So the Bradley's one actually
We're going to get to that in just a second. How do you not fall into the rabbit hole? If I did this for a living, I think I would just be looking at stuff. I can't even get through. If your Twitter tweet feed shows up in my feed when I'm on deadline, I'm doomed because I just fall into watching it. I mean, how do you not watch everything?
It's hard, but generally speaking, I'm looking for something specific. So it's like a needle in a haystack trying to find that one thing.
All right, let's take a look at a video of a clip from Fort Point And this one is fascinating. I want folks to pay careful attention to this. So you're going to narrate us exactly where we're through. This is Fort Point. When was this shot?
This is not exactly Fort
Right,
Point, but what it is, it's from downtown, from a high-rise, looking, building, office building, looking down on the central artery.
Right.
And for people who don't know, this is what the Big Dig was meant to alleviate all of this traffic congestion, so they decided to put this all underground. But this is before they did it. This is what it looked like in Boston. This was the central artery that snaked through the city. So you're looking at...
This is the Rose Kennedy Greenway now, right?
I don't think
No?
so. I think
Where
you're
are
looking... I think if you... At the top of the screen is
Oh, I
where
see
Fort
where-
Point
yep,
Channel
yep.
would be.
But-
Now you're looking...
At the Custom House, Faneuil Hall Marketplace area. That's the ramp that leads up. That's over, but it's amazing.
The camera's going to go to the left pretty soon, and that you're going to see is, it's like a parking lot, but now it's the Seaport District.
The amazing thing to me, too, about the traffic is, my whole life growing up in Revere, whenever we had to go to the South Shore or into Boston, I felt like we were going on an international excursion, right?
Yeah.
We would have to leave early.
Yeah.
My mother was
Yeah.
really, and Dad were really always concerned about showing up on time. I feel like I did nothing but sit in traffic on the Tobin Bridge or in the Sumner and Callahan
You and
Tunnel.
everybody else.
And we've made all these efforts at improvements, but it's clear that it's not the roadways necessarily we need to fix, it's us.
Well, there's a lot more people that live in
Yeah.
Boston now than lived when this was shot.
Yep, it's amazing. All right, we're going to jump to another clip. This one I wanted to make sure made it because I had such a special place in my heart. For those of you who are fine dining fans, you may love being over at the Liberty Hotel where you can dine, but Buzzy's Roast Beef used to be there. Buzzy's Roast Beef, this is a great clip that shows the area. Buzzy's was, I think it was over 24 hours, wasn't it?
It was open pretty late at night, which was the appeal of it. I don't think anybody ever went there for the food.
No, it was not. It was not a great sandwich, I'll tell you. It was certainly no Kelly's, but it was open, and if you went out to the Rat in Kenmore Square, you could buzz over to Buzzy's afterwards.
Or people who worked the late shift at Mass General Hospital, or people who were out like going to bars or something. This was the place to go because it was open
Look
late.
at the size of those cars. I keep complaining about how big cars are today, but everyone seems to have a big car.
Yeah, that's all we knew back then.
That was also, wasn't Buzzy's like when you came off the highway, like from out of town and you came off the highway, that was like the first thing you saw off the highway was Buzzy's.
And also when you took the red line over the Longfellow Bridge, if you
Right.
looked down on the right side, you could see it. And I remember people all talking about
Yeah.
it. So I knew that there was, a buzz about Buzzy's.
With the new Google Street apps, we keep finding surprising things that they have absolutely surprisingly captured. There's a whole website of weird things that are found on Google. Have you found any weird things while you're looking at this stuff that you were like, wow, has anyone ever seen that happening before?
You mean things that I didn't know about, like
Yeah.
Boston landmarks? Yes, like in Park Square, there was a whole, like the Trailways bus station. I never knew about that being there. There was Club Max. There was a Hillbilly Ranch. I mean, I know that these things have historical significance in Boston, but I never saw them as long as I was here. So Park Square is fascinating to me to look at footage of.
Karen, does every public broadcasting station have an archive like this?
A lot of materials have been thrown away. They didn't have storage for it, so they got rid of it. So not all of them, but a lot of them, it's interesting, mostly public media stations for some reason felt ownership of their heritage and of this material that they had created in the past, and somebody squirreled it away into a closet or under someone's desk or something. So I wouldn't say they have a formal archive, but a lot of them have kept things.
A lot of historians and librarians and people in this business are concerned about our digital life right now. And, you've got a president, for better or worse, who is issuing many communications via Twitter, right? And is not sending formal letters out anymore. We don't know who owns his Twitter account. We're not sure if we can keep it. The joy of sending someone a letter and then having it saved so that you can go dig through a box someday and look and see what President Trump, what letter he sent someone isn't, and not just him, it's just not going to exist anymore. Do you both feel some sort of compelling challenge to find a way to store and archive our digital communications now?
Yeah, well, I don't know about digital communications, but a lot of our digital files and things, and it's really hard. Like you said, you know, your mom's film, if it's kept in a cold, dry place, it's going to last 100 years. A piece of paper, you know, can last thousands of years. This digital file, we don't know how long it's going to last, and you have to constantly migrate it forward because the technology's changing and the formats are changing. And like, have you ever tried to go back to a Word document 10 years ago and read it? You know, unless you've moved it along to the upgrading, you're not going to be able to. So, yeah, it's a little frightening.
It's also the filing. I mean, you can misplace a letter, right? And the letter will still show up. But if you misplace a digital file,
among
forget it.
thousands
You'll
and
never see it.
thousands, you'll never find it.
All right,
again.
we're going to show your one of your favorite children, one of your favorite clips.
Yeah.
This is a clip from Bradley's department store. We want to ask you to pay careful attention to the audio in the background. Which Bradley's is this? Do you know?
This is the Bradleys in the Watertown Mall, 1977. And the thing that I want to point out is that when you walk into a department store, you don't hear somebody being paged. You don't hear an intercom like you used to back in the good old days. And so what I did is when I edited this, I paid attention to what you heard as well as what you've seen. So you're hearing kids screaming in the background, you're hearing people talk, and so I wanted to include this so it's once again total immersion in the 1977 experience at Bradley's.
Here it is.
Mr. Whitman, layaway, please. Mr. Whitman to layaway. Toys 2-1, toys 2-1, housewares 2-0. Gary Horseman, dial 37, please. Gary Horseman, 37. Shoes 2-2, shoes 2-2. Eileen Gormley, dial 41, please. Eileen Gormley, dial 41. Chris Richardson, dial 2-1, you have car 1-1. Come on, over here. Quantum Toys, dial 2-0, Toys 2-0.
You know what cracks me up about this is that we act like our cell phones are distracting us to death with, you know, our text messages and alerts. But I'm stressed out just being in Bradley's in 1977 with all that noise and that interruption.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. It's also, to the point, you know, you would not think going through a department store and looking at board games would be that educational in the future, but the idea that TV shows were optioning out licensing agreements to Milton Bradley to play games and has been going on for about as long as there's been an opportunity to, right?
Right. It's a window into the past, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the original Charlie's Angels for people watching at home. We're on our, 129th edition of Charlie's Angels. All right, so where can folks follow you and see some of this great archival stuff to totally disrupt their day while they're trying to do their work?
WGBH Archives on Twitter, WGBH Media Library and Archives on Facebook.
And Karen, if people want more information, want to support the efforts?
WGBHOpenVault.org or AmericanArchive.org.
Okay, great. Thanks to both of you. Thanks so much for coming in. Great to meet you, and I can't wait to see more on Twitter. I'm looking for myself because I know I'm going to show up there somewhere. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Lunch Hour Live here at the Boston Public Library at the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Sue O'Connell. Next week, WGBH's Chief Marketing Officer, Tina Cassidy, is going to sit down with Rosabeth Moss-Cantor. She's got a new book out. It's called Think Outside the Building. So stay with us. Keep track of us. Thanks for watching.